Hello, everyone. Welcome to our second to last This Week in Crypto here in what's been one heck of a 2023 if you've been on the bullish side of things. I want to welcome our founder, Maksim. How are you, my friend?
Hi, everyone. Doing well. Yeah, I think we'll cover topics, so I don't start covering now.
Of course.
Crypto doesn't make it easy or, let's say, quiet for Christmas. It doesn't feel like vacation, not at all.
It certainly never sleeps, and if people were expecting a bit of a holiday break here, they have been mistaken because crypto is still roaring along, especially if you've been in altcoins and particularly Solana, which has just regained the number 4, or I should say first cracked the number 4 spot in the overall market cap rankings. Yeah, so it's the highest it's ever been. As far as I am aware, it hasn't cracked $100 as of yet. Certainly, it's a possibility that it won't, but it seems based on the mainstream opinion that it's on its way there in the upcoming week or so. So we'll see if that happens. But it's been the hot topic, as you guys could have seen from our thumbnail. And also, we've got some Argentina and France news that we'll be talking about. But in terms of some of the biggest performers in the past week, regardless of talk, we even see Binance Coin getting a nice 11% jump in the past week. That's certainly something that we've kind of anticipated with so much FUD revolving around it. I think the idea that it was the next FTX token was pretty overstated, considering Binance is still alive and cooking as the biggest exchange in the world. Sometimes people see recent history and they'll assume that any exchange that goes through drama is going to go the same path as the last exchange that went through drama. But this is, of course, a very different situation. So Binance Coin is moving back in the right direction. We see Avalanche had a nice 10% jump. Polkadot up 14%. Always a favorite for people who believe in development activity. Shiba Inu is up 11% in the past week. Look at Internet Computer just continuing to surge, up 30%. And then our biggest in terms of the top 100 market cap assets, in terms of price gains, would be Near Protocol, up 49%, now up to $3.40. That's a big story. Optimism up 42%, right behind it. VE Chain plus 22, Stacks plus 34. And then we have Algorand at plus 16, Arbitrum at plus 20, Phantom had a big week at plus 15%, and Flow at plus 16%. So there are a lot of stories out there right now, and people who have been following these assets for a while are being handsomely rewarded for their patience. Additionally, we can see that Bitcoin is actually being talked about just slightly more than it was 1 week ago when we compare the past 7 days to the 7 days before that. Ethereum, even more so. It's actually one of our trending assets right now, meaning there's a significant increase in discussion compared to its normal resting average. So it's getting talked about 16% more than the week before. And then look at Solana, 77% more discussion compared to the previous week. As you would imagine, that is pretty closely related to its price surge. And a lot of FOMO is related to this asset at the moment, and for good reason. We see it's up 26% in the last week, but if we go to 30 days, don't mind the anomaly here that's skewing the axis, but if we highlight Solana, 75% in the past 30 days, that'll get the job done and certainly spark some FOMO, especially considering that's much more decoupled than the rest of the altcoin pack right now. We can also see the volume just in the past 7 days for all assets is up 22%. The overall market cap is not as high as you may expect, plus 3.3%, which is still an excellent week for all of crypto. And if you look at the overall market cap now of crypto, we're sitting at $2.4 trillion, if I'm counting those digits correctly. Yes, I am. So tons of stories. Before we move on to some of the key assets and the That's not good.
Yes, there was something. Yeah, yeah, there was something.
Is it still a problem right now?
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, sure. Uno momento. Let's try that. How does that sound? Okay, no problem. Thanks for letting me know. We're all about improvising here on our This Week in Crypto live streams. Anything can happen. Maxim, I was going to say, do you have any notable assets that you've been watching here in the past week? Brother Max, you may be muted if you're talking right now.
Yep. Interestingly enough, actually, I was probably didn't expect it from me. I was farming. I was farming USDT pool. I have a specific strategy, and then I got interested in, and it was good yield, 20%, but it's always short-lived in specific conditions.
Sure.
Then there is JMX, not JMX. Okay, JMX as well. I'm considering entry positions there, so I'm watching it, and it looks pretty well in my opinion now. And then Gearbox, yeah, but it's already kind of experiencing crazy swings. So I don't know what to do. Should I suggest, not suggest, maybe I stay away. JMX, in my opinion, looks interesting. And all, of course, subject to the whole crypto market cycle, which is if I now look into major driving force, which is mostly altcoins, of which Solana is the biggest one. It's actually now, with the current position, I don't know if you can call it altcoin. Well, it should still. It can go down. Yeah, when there are two conditions when on the blue chips are moving, Bitcoin, Ethereum, the rest are kind of struggling. That's a good sign, mostly beginning of cycle. When it's other way around and different, especially meme coins are pumping, the rest are not doing, it's a very bad sign. Luckily for us today, Ethereum kind of got some fire. So, okay, we can, but it's, you need really to pay attention now. And the reason I'm saying, if you want to see very good setups in GMX, probably others on the streams, he's in other coins, I still haven't made up my mind what should I do with a general cycle. Are we capable of making this wave in Ethereum cycle to 731, or that's it? So it's the main question. So if even your question was about altcoins, and I kind of did mention a few coins I'm monitoring. For me, the main question is: are we done with the cycle? And it's a time to experience lower, or it's indeed this madness we are seeing, all this. Interestingly, unexpectedly pumping coins on Solana, not only on Solana, is the sign that we are in a fear phase which will just escalate and you'll see this explosion and then we crash. This is the main question. And I wonder if we will get an answer to it during our conversation today. And it's in the 1 million, or let's say it's at least 50% of your portfolio question. It depends on your portfolio. So I wouldn't say 1 million. It could be more if it has bigger portfolio. Could be less if less. But this is a key question: is the cycle done? Take into account a little bit like madness we experience enough, or it's just a sign we experience 1 week more going to the new year and then we crash. Open question.
Right. Right. I think it's really just a matter of timing. And we don't know how big a crash it will be. There will be something at some point, especially when we look at the MVRV model right now, which shows almost every asset here is in the semi-overbought or very overbought range. And this is just the midterms like we've discussed before. So this is combining the 30, 90, and 180-day MVRVs. And it's certainly not painting a very good picture. Yeah. So, I mean, especially some of the bigger ones that have just been really surging. Injective, it's off the axis here. Merit, Circle, Blue Zell, Polka Starter, all the ones that have just been doing the best over the past, 1 to 6 months, really. They're the ones that are very red here. And you can just proceed with caution. I like seeing that Loom is the only one that's actually in the underbought range. So that's funny for what it's worth. But overall, this perspective is not painting a very good picture for future pumps week after week. But crypto markets have defied the odds many times. So if we look now at some of the leading indicators that might be telling us where these final 9 to 10 days of the year are looking. We'll zoom out to 6 months. What do we see in terms of Bitcoin right now? Well, it does look like trading volume is still in that higher range. It's certainly fallen off a bit since the excitement happened at the beginning of December. This is when, we first saw Bitcoin get above 44K. It was on a big surge here in late November to early December. And then we saw trading volume kind of gradually fall off. Now, it's still up significantly compared to September and October, but certainly not at the level that we were at a couple weeks ago. And generally, we need to see rising volume to go along with rising prices to justify further market cap increases. In a short sample size, anything can happen, but just keep that in mind. And transaction volume looks like it's been pretty flat in terms of just overall. And in conversion to dollars, there's just not a lot going on here. If we go to utility and we look at daily active addresses, now to me, Maxim, this is one of the big concerns. There's been a major drop in the overall amount of unique addresses interacting on the Bitcoin network.
Yes and no. I mean, yes, it's already played the game. It was a divergence. I think I mentioned a few times in our Discord at least, and I was observing it. And as a matter of fact, those who listen, it's on the main page of santiment.net. We placed it there for the purpose. Sometimes you just need one metric/indicator to see the growing concerns. And it was, so you're right, it is a major concern when the price of Bitcoin was pumping to 40,000 and we start seeing this divergence. So it was just a matter of time. Now, after we had some kind of correction, and keep in mind, correction could be deep in price or maybe not so deep in price, but over time. So we're in corrective mode for Bitcoin for some time without breaking highs. So you could consider it's already disvalidated, or let's say the indicator played out. So you should look now on a shorter time frame in case price will start making lower lows, but this activity, daily active addresses, start growing. So they will diverge in another direction. So you always, it's a cool indicator. It's rarely you use one, but sometimes it's very telling. And right now, I would not recommend to use it as any alpha today, because it's already played. The alpha was there, it's played out. So it's now wait mode again. But it's good to repeat and keep looking to it, because I noticed it after some time, and it stayed some time divergence, but it cannot stay forever. So it was resolved to some degree.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that you have to take that daily active address divergence with a grain of salt. It's best to use on a shorter time scale and compare, month to month as opposed to year. And Obviously, right now,
yes,
the overall,
because it all depends on context. Yeah, you just see that
right.
prices developing in one specific direction, and then the network first get excited. So we're in a recognition triggering point, mostly around the middle of move. So there is a strong increase in network activity, trading volume, social volume, transaction volume, like everything, or most of the metrics, like growing strongly and healthy. And then there is a decline in an on-chain activity or even social, showing that people turned into, okay, we're in a good position. Let's wait and see what will happen next. You know what happened next. You should never wait and see in crypto. It's always unexpected happens. So and then we start seeing divergences, like people maybe buying or selling or moving to exchanges less and less, taking less and less profits. And it can go for some time, but in my experience, never longer than 2 weeks. Like 3 days to 2 weeks, it's the maximum time span when you start seeing divergences, when it will get resolved. Actually, this time it took, I think, around quite some time, 2 weeks. Yeah. So you look into the context here, what's happening to the price and what's happening to the metrics.
Mm-hmm.
And don't compare it to what was 1 year ago. It was different context. Maybe there was a crash, so the metrics were supposed to spike massively during the crash because there is a panic in the market. Everyone moves, and or most of the people move and talk and trade and sell, panic, or some people buy. But you observe where we're now, and we've been growing actually surprisingly healthy. I did expect 2,400. If now Ethereum is breaking above, it's already going a little bit beyond my expectation, but it can allow it to go to 7. Even one of our community members says 3.1. Okay, sometimes they're more right than me. I open to it, but I keep observing, and we're coming back to divergences. It is the key. If the price keep now in this stage growing, but the metrics are not follow up, there is no excitement, and you don't see the metrics, it's a little bit bad situation. But if you see excitement, okay, all divergence is resolved. Yeah, and we keep observing again.
Yeah, I think that you're exactly right. Prices always seem to run a little bit longer than what the divergence or the correction indicators are implying. And the correction indicators really started to pop up, I'd say, early December. And there's just been a little bit of extra fumes pushing altcoins up. But Bitcoin, arguably, when we look at this pattern here, this is just the last 3 weeks or so. Let me just take off all of these indicators and look at price on its own. Clearly it hasn't reached its local top that happened back on December 8th. It's gotten very close, but without a higher high and kind of more in a ranging period now between 40 to 44K or so. I think that it's just, it's bulls and bears battling here, but the advantage goes to the bears considering how much prices have really churned in the last 3 months compared to especially mid-October here when it was at 26.8K. Prices have gone up 62.7%. So, we look at MVRV here down below, for example, the 30-day MVRV is still only up a modest plus 5%, but this is what concerns me, Maxim, plus 41% for the active addresses that have made any sort of transaction in the last 365 days. That tells me the long-term average trading returns are still way too overinflated to justify a continued run.
How do you come to this? Just for me to understand better, I want to learn something. How do you come to this conclusion once again? Because too many people doing it or too little? Or what exactly?
Yeah, just when you see the average trading returns for long-term investors up above...
Okay, you mean MVRV, yeah?
Yeah, exactly. Just looking at MVRV.
Is it 1 year or what?
Yeah.
Or 180 days?
So we're looking at, if it loads one more time, the 30-day is in orange and the 365-day is in teal or blue, whatever you call it. Pretty much in most cases, once the teal, the 365-day passes plus 30%, this is where you typically see prices flatten out. And you saw the same thing back here in October. And then it finally got all the way up to plus 50% in the beginning of December, just about 3 weeks ago, not even 2.5 weeks ago. Since that time, yeah, prices have been battling here between bulls and bears, but when you see both the 30-day and 365-day well into the positives, it's usually not a good sign. Ideally,
30% is quite a lot for new holdings.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a kind of, you can say it's partially supported by stock market performance. People now a bit more show acceptance or relaxed when they see performance, because the whole market performed pretty well in the last, let's say, I don't know exactly, half year was very, or even more good performance. So the feeling is more acceptant and relaxed. But this exactly is the seed of the coming problem. When you're becoming too relaxed and forget that the market is pricing in the future, and you see the high price in Bitcoin or in stocks, it's already priced in the future, which haven't come yet. So price in the crypto market or like in Bitcoin, it's obviously pricing into things. ETF approval, and halving probably too, and because of ETF inflow of institutional money. This is the main reason we see the price of Bitcoin. So, and potentially start pricing in, or I don't know if it's already finished pricing in, the rate cuts next year. So all the things, it's reflected in the price of Bitcoin and the whole crypto market. And it's actually ironically, because it's not really what crypto was supposed to be, institutional money, all the stuff. But I understand the narrative is good. Now imagine the time when you buy the rumor, sells the fact. Everything is being priced in by speculators. They are moving the price because they expect the future will come in specific way. ETFs accepted, rate cuts are coming, institutional money coming, halving is coming. Now, if everything priced in, well, we're in a shitty situation, then the only bad news can come next. The market start pricing in bad news. So that's what I mean. Acceptance of the good environment is important. And we probably need to only analyze or take risk. The market can perform still higher or irrationally higher till this event took place. And when the correction or revisit of the lows will happen at the news, shortly before the news, shortly after the news. This is our, actually, it should be, if I talk about sentiment analysis, the main purpose of analysis now. As we obviously in the later stages of bull markets, I have no doubt when you see so many alt or much more better than the crypto itself coins pumping, this is the latest stages. I've seen it many times. All the Solana and all the NFT meme coins, whatever you call it, it's the later stages. It just how long will it take? 1 week, 2 weeks, 1 day, 1 month? It's a question of timing now. And maybe if ETF was supposed to be middle of January, I don't know. We can take it as a kind of middle number to play around. But anyway, it's already a generic talk. Maybe you want to look into some specific metrics.
Yeah, I transitioned over to the S&P versus Bitcoin for a moment, and it does look like they're still moving up pretty well in tandem right now.
Yes. Market is heavily priced in. There are rates coming, easier money, American economy, according to the numbers and data, not according to what you see on the ground, but according to numbers that are performing well. No crisis, no recession, no good. Rates, of course, is different, but speculators taking bets on what they see on big numbers.
Right. And the rate cuts, I think there's just a lot of optimism about the potential of that.
Exactly.
And,
it was.
And I still have, go ahead.
No, it's exactly what kind of one of the most concerning parts, because I always said the top will come when there are good news. And now there was a news, or actually almost consensus, there will be rate cuts coming. So Is it the news, or do you want to wait till the first rate cut is coming? I think market will tank before. I don't think it will wait so long time.
Right. And imagine how the markets will react if the cuts end up not happening, right? Because there's speculation. The reason we're seeing so much of a rise right now is because of all of the speculation that it's a foregone conclusion, that we're certainly going to see cuts.
That's even more severe case here. Then if rate cuts are not happening, they just keep it. We should see market going down like tomorrow. I don't know. Okay.
Yeah.
Wednesday after Christmas.
Yeah. So when there's a best case scenario of rates getting cut as people expect, that's already kind of baked in, right? Because people are pumping crypto and pumping the S&P with the anticipation that what Jerome Powell spoke about in his last meeting is going to come. There's not really going to be any further gains and fireworks from that because it's already kind of a buy the rumor situation. Doesn't mean that it'll be sell the news, but maybe it'll be neutral if the rates are cut. But if for some reason the rates aren't cut or the horizon changes in the US and world economy in the next month, and then the rate cuts don't happen, or they stay the same, or heaven forbid they even rise interest rates more, which is probably very unlikely, then we're actually going to be in a position where you might see a pretty big bloodbath. So the best case scenario is neutral, but the worst case scenario is a big drop. You don't exactly want to be all in on something when those are the kind of outcomes that you're dealing with right now. So to me, that's kind of the way you should be looking at it. It doesn't mean you want to get out of crypto or out of the S&P, whatever it is you're investing in. You just want to be cautious of the current conditions and playing probabilities when you've seen these kinds of very high average returns before, and so much excitement and FOMO and euphoria out there, with 2023 being an excellent year for everything, for S&P, for gold and silver, for crypto, especially altcoins that have made up for a lot of lost time right now. So just keep that in mind, and you'll be in good standing as long as you stay cautious. So we talked about Solana. And then in terms of Argentina and France, which we said we'd mention. So this is pretty big news. Argentina's Minister of Foreign Affairs has confirmed that contracts can be agreed upon in Bitcoin in Argentina. Argentina is not exactly a massive GDP country, but it's not small either. It's a mid-range country in terms of its impact on the world. And when it has a policy like this that now allows for contracts to be agreed upon in Bitcoin, it's kind of similar to what we're seeing with El Salvador. It's moving in the right direction in terms of adoption, and South America continues to be at the forefront, it seems. And anytime there's a country, a notable one that has some impact on the world, which Argentina does more so than El Salvador.
Brian, yes. Oh. The sound is bad.
So strange. One moment. Test. How do I sound? Okay, I'll just keep on reloading my mic whenever that happens. I'll work on it after the stream. Sorry, guys. But yeah, I was just going to say, Argentina adopting, more utilization of the blockchain and being able to sign contracts in Bitcoin, that can lead to other countries following suit. We've already seen El Salvador, which is a smaller GDP country, obviously, than Argentina. So we're moving in the right direction, and larger and larger countries doing what these two countries have been doing are only going to increase the utility of crypto and blockchain technology over time. So you can see that Argentina is taking up the number 2 and number 4 spot, and number 6, by the way, foreign affairs, foreign, Argentina. Now look at France here at number 5. Coinbase has obtained approval for digital asset operations in France. They've received a virtual asset service provider license from France's Financial Markets Authority, allowing them to conduct business as a digital asset trading venue in the country. This approval is a significant step in Coinbase's European expansion strategy. So at the same time that we get this news about Argentina, it appears that France is now getting having approval to operate Coinbase various tasks and different aspects of their company in France now, which is huge because Coinbase has really just been a US based company up until now. And obviously it's one of the most reputable. It has had at least less blood on its hands than most other major exchanges out there. So I think this is a great sign that Coinbase will begin allowing for more and more utilization in European countries and beyond. So we've got good news coming, obviously, from Argentina, good news coming from France, and this is exactly what you want to see as the holidays come here at the very end of 2023 and we move into the next year. More and more expansion and good news coming from other countries who are looking to adopt and utilize crypto further than they have up until now. So I'm pretty happy to see this. A few other trends that are on here. PCE. Okay, this is related to the gold market. So maybe very slightly related, but not so much. Bitcoin ETFs are being discussed along with other topics as cash creates pending Bitcoin transactions and cryptocurrency price and volume movements. So yeah, it looks like it's almost all good stuff here on the trending topics. If we move over to the trending tokens, I just want to remind everyone, I just put out a video. Check our YouTube. About 8 or 9 hours ago, we released a video about these trending tokens, and they've changed a tiny bit. Ethereum was at 5 yesterday, now it's at 2. Solana still at number 1. But you'll notice almost every asset here is seeing a pump. And typically when you see an asset get to the top 3, while it's pumping, there's a pretty strong likelihood that you've got a correction coming up. So that's why we have to be a little bit pessimistic about Solana's future. Yes, maybe it'll get to $100. Maybe there's a big push from traders to help it get there. And that psychological resistance level will be very key. But generally, we've actually done a back test and found 72% of the time that an asset climbs like this and then hits the top 3, it actually ends up correcting, and shorting is the correct strategy. So keep that in mind, especially for smaller assets, which of course Solana and Ethereum are not. And AMP here is actually not trending for the same reason. I think that was related to ETFs. But you can see just below it, Algo, Mover, Dot, even BNB. These are all assets that could very well see a correction, even though they're not in the top 3 technically. But they are pumping, and they're trending because of the fact that they're pumping. So be a little bit cautious if those coins are in your portfolio, because they are hitting the mainstream and undoubtedly getting a lot of FOMO right now. And looking at the midterm trends, I'm not seeing a lot of calls either way. Bull market and bear market are quite low. We saw CPI being discussed a week and a half ago when the US released its data. But for a lot of things, it looks like the discussions have just kind of moved over into various tokens rather than the midterm to long-term topics that have been driving markets throughout 2023. I want to go back to Bitcoin really quickly for a few more things. And then I want to make sure we leave time for a few questions and asset requests as well. Take a look at Bitcoin's funding rate right now, guys. You want to talk about greed going on. It isn't just the amount of discussion related to Bitcoin and euphoria in general. People are actually putting their money where their mouth is, and there's a high amount of longs. This is a concern. We see similar longs that happened here, and we see what happened right after. There was a drop. We see similar longs happen back here, back on November 12th, 5 weeks ago. And there was a drop right afterwards. you see a familiar pattern, even just this one big long spike that's similar or even less than what we're seeing now. A drop happened right after. And then, of course, we saw a big shorting, and that's where it flattened out. But I think funding rate still is a very underrated, underutilized metric on sentiment that people probably should be paying more attention to. And generally speaking, when the perpetual contract funding rate goes high like this, that means longs are paying shorts in order to leverage long and try to profit off of Bitcoin continuing to rise. That greatly increases the chances of a correction happening. Just like shorts paying longs here back on December 7th or 8th, that greatly increases the likelihood of prices rising, which it did so for a very short amount of time while there were these extreme shorts. Look at these shorts here too. I mean, this was a perfect time and a perfect signal to pay attention to in terms of foreshadowing what would happen next, which was a big rise. So this is a concern to me, at least on the short term. Generally after a correction, longs will dissipate pretty quickly, but all things considered on the funding rate end, be wary of the fact that people are looking pretty greedy at the moment. In terms of whale transactions, nothing too special. It's kind of just continued to stay quite high. We'll look at what the actual whale and shark tiers are doing in just a moment. Mean dollar invested age, I still like the look of this. It's not exactly dropping, which would imply that dormant coins are actively moving, but it has stayed pretty flat. And this is a pretty good run between October 22nd and now, just about exactly 2 months ago. The mean dollar invested age was at 641 days. Now it's at 631 days, when normally it's just climbing and climbing. So that's a good sign. Yeah, I like the look of this, Maxim. What do you think?
Yeah, this looks, on a long term, that looks quite good. Ideally, we see now, okay, be it this push high or not, decline, and it keeps declining this metric. I mean, decline of the price we see, and we see that people not necessarily accumulating, but they keep redistributing. So that there is still some, when people are redistributing, it means also hold long enough or had some profit in hand, they prefer to take it as they see a strong risk of prices not being able to push higher. If this is a sentiment for the majority, then I will change my mind. I say, okay, then I don't want to be as a majority. I say, let's hope for the higher prices. And this can be seen on this metric. So let's keep observing it.
Absolutely.
I still think if the price will decline, we will see accumulation again, because people say, no, I don't sell, I want to keep, we will see this 100,000, whatever. And this metric will show it as well. Yeah. So it's a kind of final decision about your portfolio. This may be one of the top metrics. I agree with you. Yeah. So let's revisit it every week just to see what's going on there.
You bet. And we see that the realized profits have consistently stayed high. So there's a lot of realized profits going on.
But you see it's going down. So people were more concerned of the previous highs. They keep taking profits. And now with where we are now, they say, okay, no, I don't take profits. Maybe it's not high enough for me. And this is a mountain concern. But let's wait a few more days or 1 week.
And then this is also interesting to me, Maxim. Supply and exchanges is still climbing. It's not significantly climbing, but ever since the beginning of
December, this for Bitcoin?
Yeah, this is just Bitcoin supply and exchanges.
Yeah, I just know that our quality on Bitcoin labels is average. We'd better use it for Ethereum-based, where it's actually a very good one. As the whole team has been keep working on adding and maintaining and cleaning up. So if we want to observe supply and exchanges, I don't know, let's take Ethereum, Link, Uniswap, whatever the big coins are.
Gotcha.
And see what's going on there. Yeah?
And we can also see social dominance. I mean, it's actually dropped quite a bit. This is a sign of greed, indicating there's a lot more discussion related to altcoins compared to Bitcoin. We're near that point. Let me make this a little darker so we can see it better. We're near that point where social dominance is down to its 6-month lows, which we saw back here in September, early November, mid-November. So generally, this is a sign that people are a bit too euphoric about altcoins. Doesn't mean we'll see an immediate correction because of it, but just keep in mind there's very little discussion about boring old Bitcoin right now in traders' eyes. Weighted sentiment, interestingly also, I mean, because of the lack of discussion, weighted sentiment remains very negative toward Bitcoin. So that's worth keeping an eye on too. That can actually be a good thing because of the fact that Bitcoin has kind of a negative sentiment at the moment. It can lead to rising prices, but not all the time. And then finally, the RSI of Bitcoin, I'm seeing it's come down below 50 right now, which is a good sign. It's not in like a huge bounce zone, which is usually like 35 and below. Anything below like right around here is generally where I see bounces happen. Like you can see back here, this one not as good. This one was a great bounce opportunity, but we're kind of in this mid-range where it's not in a danger zone, which is like 70 and above, something like that, but it's not in an opportunity zone either. So actually not bad considering the fact that we are, up 65% or so in the last 2 months for Bitcoin. And then take a look at sharks and whales as promised. Not exactly a great picture. You can see the percentage of supply. It peaked up here on December 6th, roughly 2 weeks ago, and dropped all the way down to 66.5% on December 19th. This darker line is just the overall amount of Bitcoin held by 10 to 10,000 BTC addresses, which we deem to be the active sharks and whales. They held 13.07 million back on December 6th and got as low as 13.02. So they dropped about, what, 50,000 BTC during that time. Yeah, between then and now, they're down 53.9K BTC. So not a huge drop by any means, but I don't like the fact that Tether and USD coin aren't moving up as Bitcoin moves down. That means there's some legitimate cash outs to fiat right now, and money moving off of crypto from these key stakeholder wallets is never a great sign. You can see, I mean, Tether and USDC, they were way up here back in June, and there is less buying power overall in these big key stakeholder wallets. So that can be a concern for the long term moving into 2024. We talked about supply and exchanges and Bitcoin's health and funding rates. Total amount of holders I've had increased interest in too. You can see since late October, certainly a lot more wallets with more than 0 BTC.
That's quite a growth.
Yeah, and ironically, I think the best conditions are when the amount of wallets are dropping, because that is typically a sign of the small micro addresses giving up and liquidating their wallets. There aren't enough sharks and whales to cause this kind of drop, so it has to be coming from small wallets in most cases, and that's when we see the biggest rises, especially for smaller assets. Bitcoin, it still works, but the 233rd market cap asset would probably be even more of a prominent signal when something like this happens. But for now, Bitcoin's wallets are growing very rapidly. If we zoom out a little for perspective, it's not a surprise that these wallets are growing, but at this rate, I mean, this is the biggest rise in new wallets being created since it looks like right before the April top. This was when we first got to about 67, 68K, which was then an all-time high back in April 2021. And then there was this correction and a lot of people liquidated on the way down. But generally, when I see prices rising and then, the amount of wallets flattening or dropping, those are the best conditions. And we saw that here in September of 2023, right before the big run up. That was a great sign. And it even flattened here. That was a good sign too. And then once it started doing that, that was the sign of a lot of FOMO going on. So I'm increasingly trying to study this metric, and I think it's really useful no matter what asset you're looking at. And there we have this for most of our assets, especially if it's an ERC20. So I encourage you to check out the total amount of holders metric on Sandbase. And you can also create it yourself just by merging. If you go to absolute and you click on every checkbox under supply distribution, that's the same thing. So it's just looking at all of the addresses. It's very rounded in this case, but this is all of the addresses over time for Bitcoin.
Brian, I think we should probably take the answer because we have, I think, 10 minutes left here.
Absolutely. Let's jump into a few questions and any asset requests you may have.
Okay, we got one asset request, which is TRIAS, TRIAS.
Okay.
And I personally would be interested in ENS if we have some time for it.
Sure. We'll look at TRIAS and then ENS. So TRIAS token is the 406th market cap rank. Not one we've looked at before, but we'll see what we can find here for you. So beginning with trading volume, I can see that it really peaked around December 17th, the beginning part of this week, Sunday and Monday. And then the trading volume dropped down. It is having a bit of a resurgence right now. Let's zoom in a little to 1 hour instead. Yeah, so it peaked here on the 18th, but prices kept rising despite volume dropping. That would be a bit of a concern to me. Generally, you want to see volume continuing to rise as prices rise. Otherwise, it's implying that there's not enough interest in the trend of prices continuing to rise. In the meantime, transaction volume, not really looking too special at the moment. A little bit concerning there. Obviously I see why there's interest in this asset, because in the past week it's up what is that? Yeah, it's more than doubled. It's up about 115%. But in terms of trading volume, it looks like the interest level isn't quite there at the moment. If we look at daily active addresses and circulation, we can see a similar phenomenon where there was a huge spike here. This tells me there was some profit taking, probably from key stakeholders that we'll look into in a moment. But yeah, active addresses have dropped off a bit now. Circulation is not looking too special at the moment. Not really a bad sign or anything, more neutral than anything. Let's see if we can look at MVRV. If we get off of intraday, we'll just look at 30-day MVRV really quick. Yeah, so this is through the roof right now. The average return for addresses that have been active in the past 30 days is plus 81%. And you can see that's way above anything that's happened before. The last time we even saw it remotely high at plus 25% was in early November, and we saw a big slide right after that. So this is a big top signal. I'd be very concerned about that. Whale transactions, yeah, almost none. We barely ever see transactions that are above $100,000 on this network. And that makes sense. It's outside the top 400 in terms of rank, so it's relatively small. Looking at the supply distribution, so its price is at about a little over $8 now. We can look at the 10K to 100K, 100 to 1 million. Okay, so it had a big drop here back on November 25th. Actually, no, I would say it's the other way around. There was a swap and the larger addresses got more, and then they finally took a little profit on December 5th, and they've been pretty flat since. So whatever this recent run has been over the past week, it hasn't really been due to some shuffling from sharks and whales. They've mostly just been staying steady ever since a big accumulation, which arguably was a pretty good sign about 4 weeks ago. Mean dollar invested age, it actually looks a lot like Bitcoin's right now, where it's kind of been chopping and ultimately pretty flat over the past 5 weeks. So that's a good sign. It does appear that some dormant activity has been happening. And as long as it's not moving up like this, the argument is that there can be some further upswing. Realized profits, obviously quite high, as the past week has been, more than a double in terms of market cap. And then social dominance and volume, this is a good sign that there is not a huge amount of discussion, despite the fact that prices have been on such a huge surge over the past week. Yeah, I mean, obviously so many altcoins have been pumping that even with a 2x over the past week for TRIAS, it hasn't stopped, or it hasn't turned a lot of heads and gotten the mainstream FOMO attention that you may expect. So TRIAS, for whatever reason, maybe it's too small of a market cap. It's still outside the top 400, so not a lot of people are looking at it, but that's a good sign. We don't want to see the mainstream FOMOers start to jump in on TRIAS. That would indicate we're close to a top. Yeah, I mean, weighted sentiment, we did see a spike, but it wasn't a big one. If you look at the top left of my screen here, it shows that the weighted sentiment's at 0.59. Generally, if it's below 1, this isn't too big of a spike. And for the most part, TRIAS just is not talked about much at all. We don't have development activity. I wish we did. I'd be interested in seeing what's going on there. But in terms of RSI, this is a concern. I've said anything above 70 is where you typically see tops, which I can mark right about there. So yeah, you can see in most cases, this was a price top. This was a price top. You can see prices fell right after. This was a price top. This all was a price top. And then so far, yes, it's crossed 70 and continued climbing, but this is the highest the RSI has been in the past 3 months and probably beyond 3 months. So the argument for a top is certainly there. I'd be weary of the RSI being as high as it is. Overall, yeah, I think TRIAS is showing some pretty big bearish signals at the moment. Many of the standard top signals that pop up on our platform are there for TRIAS. The one optimistic sign, I think, is the fact that social sentiment is not really showing any signs of FOMO yet. So maybe there could be one last push until we really start to see that FOMO kick in from the crowd. All right, and with our final 3 or 4 minutes here, let's look at ENS, because we're going to try to stop right at the top of the hour. So jumping right into ENS, we see trading volume actually looking a lot better than it was for TRIAS. We do see this very recent rise as prices are climbing. So I like the look of that. We did see that, the big volume spike happened right here. And then this drop off indicated we were close to a top, and that's exactly what happened. On the transaction volume end, yeah, we're seeing another big spike that just happened. And these spikes are often pretty indicative of a turnaround, so be a little weary of that, considering our last big move was a big rise. Active addresses, nothing special, pretty much in the middle of its range. Circulation, another big spike, just like with on-chain transaction volume. These often can signal turnarounds, so be a little bit concerned about that.
Check? So, but can you check a total amount of hodlers? I'm wondering if we see any trend.
Put that right at the bottom. And on price.
No, not much. Okay.
Yeah, in fact, that's a good sign. I mean, it's fading a little bit. So if we look at the small addresses, just look at, well, what's ENS's price? Yeah, about $8, $9. So,
yeah. So I wonder which addresses are buying. It looks like obviously not very small because we don't see the growth. So is it accumulation of existing hodlers? Let's say take 1,000 to 10,000, 10,000 to 100,000. No, not okay. Yeah. And how
I'll just do them individually. So this is 1 to 10,000 in yellow. The 10,000 to 100,000 is in orange. They've been dropping, but look at the 100,000 to 1 million.
So this one is accumulating heavily.
Yeah, 800K to about $8 million.
Unless this is exchange wallets. Which is also
right, which we could look at. So we can look at top exchange addresses and the supply held by them. And then we'll also look at top non-exchange addresses to compare. Yeah, so it does look like a lot of the exchange addresses are getting richer in terms of the largest. That's a bit of a concern. If we look at just the overall supply and exchanges, it's not really moving too much. It's very flat over the past month. So, I mean, moderate concern considering the 10 largest exchange addresses have gotten richer while the 10 largest non-exchange addresses have gotten poorer. But overall, I like the look of this, the fact that the 100K to 1 million coin holders have been on a big accumulation trend, and it hasn't really stopped. That could indicate we're on a ride for a little bit longer for ENS until they decide to change their minds.
And Max, I also hold in ENS if it's of any help. I do have hopes with it.
And it has been like flat has been a pretty good description of the coin. So I was wondering if I should hold on to it.
And it looks like mean dollar invested age is maybe very slightly dipping, but nothing too special with dormant tokens right now. Bit of an age consumed spike here, just like we had one back on the 14th. But yeah, ENS looks okay in terms of its whale activity. Also, realized profit loss. Look at how, even though there's been a bit of a rise, there's this big loss spike. That's a good sign. Yeah, so this definitely looks better than TRIAS, I'll say that. It certainly hasn't surged as much as TRIAS either. But yeah, good recommendation, Balresh. I haven't looked at ENS in a little while. All right, well, I think we're at the top of the hour. Hopefully this was helpful, guys. We love the recommendations and questions and the comments you give us during and after the streams are always very helpful, so we can continue to improve and give you the kind of content you're looking for. Any final words from you, Brother Maksim?
No, just we'll revisit topics we discussed, and it's in my head anyway regarding macro picture next week. We'll see where we go.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
stay tuned for our final stream of 2023 coming up next week. In the meantime, I want to wish everyone a very happy holiday or holidays, whatever it is you celebrate, whether it's Christmas or New Year's or anything in between. We hope you stay warm and safe and happy, and let's enjoy what's hopefully a final good push of crypto as we head into 2024. It's been a heck of a year, and we'll see if it has any more momentum in it. Just be cautious of the fact that there are some concerning signs on Bitcoin right now. Average trading returns are quite high, so be cautious out there and try to not buy into too much of the FOMO that is going on right now. But with that said, on behalf of Balresh and Maksim, thank you all for watching, and we'll see you next week. Take care, guys.
Yep. See you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.